Hey, this is Victor Antonio, and welcome to another Behind the Wheel episode here. Hey, I want to talk about how do you program people? Like, how do you program people to stay in the game mentally when they're faced with a task that's very difficult to do? Now, to do this, I want to introduce you to, or maybe remind you of something called the inoculation effect. Now, the inoculation effect is really fascinating because what you do is you inoculate people against, in this case, being negative. Here's what I mean. So imagine that there's a task that you have to do. Let's say it's prospecting, let's say it's following up, putting a proposal together, putting a presentation together, whatever it is, doesn't matter, right? Or you have to do, let's say, a keynote presentation, you have to do a demo, again, whatever it is. Now, your attitude is like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not good at this. And let's say you're just starting out. Let's use prospecting. It's always a great one to use as an example because the fear of cold calling is always there. By the way, an essential part of the sales business. You got to call, right? So let's say you just hired somebody, right? You onboarded somebody for the first time, and all of a sudden you're saying, hey, you got to make the calls. Now, let's say you just send them in, right? Just send that person in, and 5 or 10 calls, they're getting their butts kicked, if you know what I mean, on the phone, and they're like, oh, totally dejected, right? That's scenario number uno, right? Scenario numero dos. Scenario number 2 could be something like this. What if you inoculate them against failure? Future failure. In other words, against something that may happen. Here's what I mean. What if I told you, I'm onboarding you, and I told you, look, listen carefully, little young man, young woman, here's what's going to happen. The first 100 calls you're going to make are not going to go super well. They might go okay, but they're not going to go super well. So I want you to expect that the first 100 are going to be the toughest calls you've ever made. After that, you're going to be golden, right? You send the person in. They start making calls, right? And they get to 10, they get to 20, and they're getting, again, their butt handed to them, right? But what will happen is in their mind, they're thinking, well, that's what Victor said was going to happen, so this is to be expected. So the expectation level was set. So the person is not, I'll say, depressed or dejected. They're going, part of the game, he said the first 100 are not going to go well. Now, you may be thinking, well, Victor, that's kind of a negative way of looking at things, telling people they're going to fail before they get on the phone. I don't think so. Think about this. Let's say that I send the person in. Give them the old speech about the 100 going to be tough, right? By number 10 or 20, that person starts finding their rhythm. By 30, they're in the game. So they start killing it at 30 calls. Now, when they get to 30 calls, what are they thinking about themselves? They're saying, I must be awesome. Why? Because it didn't take me 100. It took me 30 calls. So there's a motivational factor, a momentum factor in there that should be considered. My point to all this is when we inoculate people by telling them what might happen in the future, where it might go wrong, they're more mentally prepared to deal with the obstacles as opposed to getting dejected. So think about this. When you're sending out there somebody out there for the first time to do something new, something they haven't done, they don't know what to expect, set the expectation frame. Again, inoculate them against what's going to happen and just sit back and watch the results. It's going to be great. Anyway, this is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you set the expectations and you know how. Take care.